Randy, we've got a problem.
What?
They go.
Reality's here. He's trying to crash the party. Reality? Who let him in?
You're sad that people are mean? Well, I'm sorry. The world isn't one big liberal arts college campus.
I don't have an agenda like I want people to do something. I need them to do something. I want them to avoid irrationality.
I guess what interests me is just like what interests everybody else. It's just sort of what feels real.
That was totally wicked!
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News on your morning time. What is this, Monday, July 20th at 9:01 in the morning? My name is Mr. Henry. David Shine Thompson here with us as well. It's Real News. We're back again. We're doing it live. We had a couple day hiatus here. Let's see, Thursday and Friday. Shine and I were getting our work on, man. We got jobs. We do this in our spare time. We're trying to, make moves, man, make a difference in the world, doing some stuff. We're out there pounding the pavement in our own separate ways. We'll give some updates on that stuff here in just a minute. But I want to know how y'all's weekends were. How you been? What have you been into since you've been away from the Real News family? How's the community been doing? Anything y'all need help with? Let's dive right into it. Greatest audience in the nation. Appreciation segment right here. We want to appreciate y'all. We want to appreciate the community and let you know how appreciative of each and every one of you that we are as well. What are you struggling with? What are you going through right now? What are you thinking about? What books are you reading? I'm still in that coddling of the American mind. And I'm telling you, man, about every other page I'm turning now, it's hitting me and it's hitting me. It's hitting me. And I'm like, dude, am I part of the problem too? Like, am I a little bit of the problem also? Because, man, there's some stuff, man. It's hitting a little bit of the pride chips. It's hitting a little bit of the other chips too. Maybe I need to change some of my own way of thinking, and I'm trying my absolute best. That's what we're doing here. But what books are y'all reading? What novels are you into? What are you struggling with? Do you have some shout outs, some praise, some prayer concerns, any of that stuff? Throw it in the chat. realnewsradio.live, by the way, realnewsradio.live. Doesn't matter if you're on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch or Mixer, as long as that's still a thing, I think for 2 more days. I'm going to be able to see your comments in the unified chat system going on right now. We're saying good morning to everybody. So let me know how you've been, what you've been up to, all that good stuff. David Shine Thompson, buddy, how you doing, man? You've been having a grueling last couple of days as well, without giving too much information here. But how's stuff going in East Tennessee way?
I'm under no illusions that I'm part of the problem. I definitely am. I just try to be more part of the solution than part of the problem. I try to be like 51% solution is the goal and only 49% of the problem.
That's awesome.
That's the goal. Like I am under no illusions that I don't walk around every day and don't make things a little bit worse. But I try to make things a little bit better. Then I make them worse, if that makes sense.
That's awesome.
And I don't need a book to tell me that, even though I'm sure they could articulate it better. I had to take a break from like political and philosophical stuff. I read the new World of Warcraft album last week. Yes, I am a nerd. The biggest. But anyway, that's my books I'm reading right now. But it was a great weekend and a great week last week. I don't know all the details I'm able to share, but it was a really great week of activism. Really great stuff. Got to meet some really cool people. And had a great week. Glad to be back here on Real News. Ready for a great week.
It was a week of activism in my mind as well. I mean, some of the folks that are probably listening this morning were actually probably involved in some of this stuff. It actually brings us to the first topic. Let's dive right into it this morning. The local stories section you're going to see there in the show notes. I mean, this is number 4, goodgovernment.com. I'll gloss over this pretty quickly. More, I want to talk about how awesome every single person that does anything with us ever on Real News or Americans for Prosperity or anything. Again, quick line of delineation here. This stuff that Shine and I do in the morning, we do this in our own spare time. We want to build this community. We love each and every one of y'all. I say that sincerely. I think I say that and people think it's just something I'm throwing out there sometimes, but no, man, I sincerely mean this. I mean, I have personal great relationships with most of the people that listen to this program. We talk off air. We share stories with each other, a lot of this stuff. Still, some of y'all need to meet in person. Eric, by the way, is one guy I still need to meet in person. But anyways, over the weekend here and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and even a little bit into Sunday, this number 4 goodgovernment.com, number 4 goodgovernment.com. That's where you're going to find this petition that we were working, just pounding the pavement, trying to get out to every single early voting location here in the Middle Tennessee area. We had incredible turnout, y'all. I'm talking absolutely incredible turnout. We had something to like 30 to 40 different volunteers across 10 different early voting locations. Hundreds, if not thousands, of these petitions have been signed. I mean, absolute wild turnout. We had people that were showing up just to sign the petition. We had a couple people that showed up and actually gave us video testimonials saying, I wasn't even registered to vote. I came to register to vote just to sign y'all's petition. I don't even want to vote in the rest of this stuff. I just came to find y'all at this early voting location to sign this petition. That's how upset these people are about this 34% property tax increase. If you don't know what we're talking about, by the way, there's this petition going around because in Nashville here, Metro government just increased our taxes, property taxes, by 34%. Now, this petition, amongst other things, is going to do a few things. It'll kick that 34% down to 2%. And every single year going forward, Metro government cannot raise property taxes above 2% unless they get the consent of the people, meaning by way of referendum. We're also talking about no giveaways of our parks or lands. There's talking about stuff going on with issuance of bonds. It's basically just sort of more open transparency in government. If you're going to spend our money, you have to show us how and why you're spending our money. It's stewardship of our bonds, of our
Freudian slip.
Let's pause and just take that in for a minute. Maybe the first way I said it was the best way. Oh, geez.
Well, when you're talking about a 34% property tax, it might not be stewardship. It might be something else.
It may be something else.
That was so good, Grant. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks. It was playing, that's for sure. Anyways, it does all that great stuff. Now, one of the updates we had over the weekend here as well is that the first quarter sales tax numbers came out. And this 34% property tax increase was initially meant to make up for a $130 million budget deficit in Metro government. So the way this goes, obviously, is like, hey, we spend, and we never really worry about making these books meet. But now we're looking at a $130 million shortfall. So what do? Well, we have to raise property taxes, don't we? Because the majority of Metro government funding comes from these property taxes. Well, the update now is after the first quarter, they thought sales tax revenue was going to be dramatically less than what it ended up coming into, obviously because of the COVID shutdown. What we found out is that $134 million, or the $130 million shortfall is going to look more like $18 to $20 million, which makes that 34% increase. If you're going to do the math out, you would only really need about an 8% property tax increase to match that $20 million shortfall. So even the original pitch is not necessarily holding up anymore. The original pitch of the 34%. Now people are starting to recognize this. I cannot tell you the spectrum of demographic we had come out here and sign this thing, man. It didn't matter if you were Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Libertarian. It didn't matter race, religion, national origin, creed. It didn't matter, man. We had people that were helping us volunteer that weren't even American citizens yet. I had some folks that just moved here from New Zealand that just bought a house in the area that said, look, man, I'm just so upset about this. I can't even vote. I'm not even technically an American yet, but I love this country so much. We came here. I want to fight for what's right. Please, can I get involved? And I'm like, yep, you sure can. Let's get you out to a location, man. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm pitching all this just to say, like, man, the amount of help that you guys helped us do this, the amount of help of when you're just like, even just simple things, like when you're sharing these photos, when I'm posting stuff on Real News over the weekend, I know a lot of this doesn't have much to do with y'all out in the Knoxville area or those that are listening in Memphis or Chattanooga or wherever you're from. But even just like, simple shares here and there or likes here and there, like, man, just tweaking the algorithms for us. Because again, the whole purpose of doing something like this for me was to turn it into a major movement, something that goes beyond just the property tax issue at hand right now. To send a clear message to the entire state that Tennesseans are demanding proper stewardship of our tax dollars and increased transparency. So again, last time for the appeal before I get into the national stories here, because I'll tell you one person in particular, Kelly, and Facebook's going to go, she's going to have something to say about this next national story. One thing you can do for me is number4goodgovernment.com, number4goodgovernment.com. Sean just threw it up on the screen there a little while ago. Anybody you know anywhere that can get in touch with someone that's a registered voter in Davidson County, share that information with them. All they would have to do is print off that. It's a simple, PDF thing you could print off, sign it, get 15 other people to sign it with you, fold it in half, put a stamp on it, mail it, goes right back to us. If you can get that to as many people as possible, that's exactly what we're looking for right now is the number of signatures. And we have a bunch of other stuff coming up, maybe door knocking this week, maybe some other stuff, call banking. If you want to get involved, reach out to us and let us know. That's the end of the pitch. I feel like a salesman right now, but it is what it is. We're working, man. We're doing real work out here. We're not just talking about it anymore.
Real work, real friends.
Real work. Real work, real news, real friends. That's what it is. at realnewsradio.live. Speaking of realnewsradio.live, that's going to be the central landing page for all the real news related stuff. Let me just I don't even know a way to segue this, Sean. Let's just dive directly into it, man. I'm pretty sure her name is Ghislaine. I may be butchering that, but I don't frankly care. It doesn't matter anyways. Let's just call her Miss Maxwell.
Let's ask the French. They say bonsoir.
Ghislaine. Let's just call her terrible human being for the rest of the time, okay?
Yeah.
I'll say that. Anytime I say terrible human being, we'll know that I'm talking about Miss Maxwell for the rest of this story, all right? And it's going to be about the next 20 to 30 minutes here. Now, Kelly, in Facebook, you see her down there. She's the one she's our emoji queen here. She's the one that just commented, great job, everybody. I will have to give her almost full credit for the majority of this prep, because the majority of this prep I pulled directly from some of her Facebook posts. I mean, she has been keeping this story updated, y'all. Updated on top of updated. And I don't want to bury the lead too much here, but you can just tell from the headlines of where we entitled this show, Ghislaine Maxwell update, judge's son killed. I'm not going to bury this lead on y'all. Where this story ends up is that Deutsche Bank investors are suing Epstein or suing banks over Epstein ties. And the judge that took that on, son was just murdered and husband shot in the same night. Somebody was just waiting in their house dressed in FedEx uniform and just killed the son immediately, shot to the heart, shot the husband multiple times as well. That's where we're going. Let me start by this. Shine, if you could pull that YouTube clip that's up there right underneath that. I'm going to play this clip here into about 2 minutes to 2 minutes and 50 seconds here, because, there's some more stuff coming out. We have an accuser that's coming out now. You'll see the headline here. Jeffrey Epstein was a sick pedophile, but Maxwell was the mastermind. And the way that these things normally go, man, I remember even when that lady from Smallville, man, what was that organization she was involved in? Somebody from Facebook's gonna let me know, Rich, or somebody let me know that the organization that the lady from Smallville was involved in. How these stories usually go is that there's some male mastermind or something, and then a female is like this weird sort of like perverse recruiter. She goes out there and gets the other women to come in and be involved in sort of like
a groomer.
Yes,
that's the right
groomer.
word. It's not a recruiter.
Yes.
It's a groomer.
Thank you, man. Let's go ahead and play this. This YouTube clip here, man. Play it from the beginning. We'll play it about 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Listen to this, y'all.
CBS This Morning, we are hearing from one of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged victims. Her name is Virginia Roberts Giuffre. In her first interview since Ghislaine Maxwell was denied bail this week, Maxwell is accused of helping Epstein sexually abuse underage girls. Now, this is the first time that Maxwell has faced criminal charges in connection with Epstein, despite accusations against her that extend back more than 2 decades now. Giuffre claims Maxwell, along with Epstein, recruited, groomed, and abused her. She lives in Australia now. She's married with 3 children, and we talked to her yesterday. She told us that she thinks Ghislaine Maxwell should spend the rest of her life behind bars.
She is a monster. She's worse than Epstein. She did things even worse than Epstein did. She was vicious, she was evil, and she was a woman.
Her lawyers have said Ghislaine Maxwell is not a Jeffrey Epstein, that she has been a victim of media spin.
They're doing their job, but I know that woman. I've known her really well. Put it this way. Epstein was Pinocchio, and she was Geppetto. She was the guy controlling
the strings.
Jeffrey. Yep, she was pulling the strings. She had his money. He had her contacts. But Ghislaine was much more conniving and smart than Epstein ever was.
Virginia Roberts Giuffre says she first met Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell when she was just 16, and alleges that she was forced to have sex with Britain's Prince Andrew on 3 separate occasions. She was 17 at the time. He has denied that and says it's possible this picture with his arm around her waist was doctored.
Is there any way you could have had sex with that young woman or any young woman trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein in any of his residences?
No.
Prince Andrew should be panicking. He knows he's guilty. He needs to be held accountable. We need to show the world that the rich and the mighty can fall too.
Do you think that Ghislaine's life is in danger?
Absolutely. If she squeals on some of the people that she has videos on, they won't be happy with her talking about that.
And when you say that she has videos or she has knowledge of videos that exist about people like who? People well-known names?
Very well-known names. The government officials, the politicians, the royalty. They were taping everybody every moment when you walked into the New York mansion, to Palm Beach. Everything was being filmed.
Do you think people knew they were being taped?
No.
No.
I do not. Not at all.
Giuffre alleges Maxwell and
You can
Epstein...
stop it there, man. That's the point I want to get to. By the way, Norm just let me know in YouTube. That is Nexium, I believe. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but it's spelled Nxvim. That's the organization I was talking about a little while ago, where you had the groomer that was the female actress from Smallville. Now, Shine, if you could pull up that next Twitter link here. I think this is probably the best way to start all of this stuff that's going on, because it kind of is sort of the central theme, the motif, if you will, the whatever you want to, the common thread between all this that I hope we can all get on the same page. Right underneath that YouTube link in the show notes. By the way, if you want to follow along anything we're doing right now, show notes linked at the top of the description bar every single day. This guy tweets right here. He comes out and says, hey, just a question for every American. Can we, for the first time in a long time, agree that if Ghislaine Maxwell dies in custody or anything else that prevents justice from coming to light, we agree to reroute every single protest in the same direction? And 100%, I'm on board with this. I've been on board with this. I don't know who's not. Can we all just be on board with this? Can we please all just be on the exact same page with exactly what this dude just said right here? If we have another Epstein situation where someone suicides themselves, can we reroute the direction of every single thing that's going on in this country to this thing? And look, man, I'm not trying to jump the conspiracy shark here by saying that like everything is involved, like the entirety of all this, some weird cabal at the top is pulling strings, and the common thread between all that is some type of sick pedophile connection, or maybe I am. But I am saying this much, man. There's some stuff going on that needs to stop right now. And this stuff that's going on there are Democrats involved. There are Republicans involved. There are business leaders involved. There are doctors involved. There are attorneys involved. There are judges involved. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you think you should draw the lines. There is no disagreement amongst any of this right now. This dude is exactly dead on right. Going to this Bloomberg story. Eric says he's down, by the way. Yes, man, we're all down. We're all down to reroute the entire motivation of this country to this one thing. We're watching, by the way. Everybody be aware. Now, this Bloomberg story here. This Bloomberg article, check the date on this thing, by the way. July 13th. It was updated on July 13th. We're a little while back here. What's the date today? 20th. So we're a week out from this story. I thought it important to start here because this sets the frame, essentially, of the mindset that Maxwell was in as she was being arrested and prior to. I say that just because, look, y'all, this seems like a desperate individual that was willing to do almost anything to get away and stay away from law enforcement, which leads into some of the stretches I'm going to make an analysis here in a second for when this judge's son was murdered. I will start here when agents showed up to Maxwell's place, this place in New Hampshire. It was a property that was locked by a gate, and they had to pry it open and all that stuff. That makes sense. Somehow she bought this multi-million-dollar property with some money she had left over. I guess they didn't find that somewhere. But when agents approached the front door, they caught a glimpse of Maxwell through the window, trying to flee rather than answer them. The FBI ultimately was forced to breach Maxwell's door to enter and only arrested Maxwell after she was found, quote, in an interior room in the house. Now, when I heard that, I was thinking some type of safe room or something. I don't know if that's as far as they went or whatever, but it's in an interior room. She fled is the point that I'm making. The FBI shows up to her door. She murks off, which isn't always indicative of the fact that you're guilty of something. But I think it's pretty safe to say when Maxwell's doing it, when this terrible, that's right, we're going to call him terrible human being. When this terrible human being is doing it, I think you can say that's pretty safe to say that she was fleeing from something she was guilty from. Now, after a search of her home, agents found a cell phone on the desk that was tinfoil wrapped, they said. It was wrapped in tinfoil, and which prosecutors are calling a misguided effort to evade detection, not by the press or the public, which, of course, would have no ability to trace her phone or intercept
Tried to make a Faraday
in.
cage for her phone with tinfoil? Come on, watch a YouTube video. You can do better than that.
I know, right? She tried to evade. A security guard for Maxwell later told agents that her brother had hired former members of a British military to guard her around the clock. Maxwell provided one of the guards with a credit card issued in the name of some limited liability LLC that bought the New Hampshire home in cash last year. So now this is starting to formalize a little bit more. You see where we're coming from here? She's got an LLC placed off here somewhere. I don't know. I don't pretend to understand how these rich folks do what they do. LLC here. I'm sure there's another corporation, maybe Shell-oriented or something that's placed over here. Maybe there's some Cayman Islands connection where you're moving money around. It's a shell game. I don't know how it works. But the point is, the house was purchased and these guards were paid, not through her directly, obviously. There was this LLC, and a company credit card was issued to these people that were guarding her. These guards would then get orders to go out from time to time and go purchase supplies and food and water and all the other likes, right? The guard said that Maxwell hadn't left the property. The guard said that Maxwell had not left the property during his time working for her. She directed him to buy things at the estate. Now, if you follow along the show notes, skip down a little bit more here. See, Maxwell has also argued against the charges that were brought against her, saying that she was covered by Epstein's earlier non-prosecution agreement. Now, this is where this stuff gets really weird, y'all. So we all remember Jeffrey Epstein was prosecuted in Florida a couple years back, and it was actually something that the Trump administration was like embroiled in for all of about a minute in media time. It was really about a week in real time. And apparently something went down where somebody tried to prosecute Epstein, and somebody, or so Trump's attorney said, and I say Trump's attorney, it's not his personal attorney, it's just somebody that was...
White House attorney, or wasn't it federal prosecutors?
Yeah, it was a federal prosecutor that was appointed by Trump, and basically how it went down, the guy said that somebody told me from the FBI that Epstein's an FBI informant, so I can't touch him. I think that's what Maxwell's talking about, that she was covered under that same non-prosecution agreement with federal prosecutors in Florida. Which I suppose on its face is an absurd thing to say if it wasn't already absurd enough that Epstein actually did have that coverage. Which only lends further credence to the reason why I and Kelly and everyone else that's listening right now is so insanely frustrated with what's going on right now. Because if that part is true, what in the world did this dude know? And we all know how terrible a guy Jeffrey Epstein was. And as terrible as he was, they still didn't prosecute him, allegedly, apparently, because of how much information he had. Jump back to the video we just played. We all know about the black book, okay? We all know there's a black book. There's a list out there of people that flew on the plane and how often they flew on the plane and how many times they had interactions with him and all that stuff. But if what this other witness in the video that we started this whole rant with, that witness, if they're telling the truth, or if there's any sense of credibility to that there's video documentation of some of this stuff happening, goodness gracious, dude, please, can we have that? And frankly speaking, y'all, I don't know if there's going to be too much to say, and I hope it's not going to be too much to say, but I really don't know. I don't care how much it rocks civilization to get rid of some of these people. And I mean that sincerely. I don't mean get rid of them, take them out. I just mean I need justice to be done. And what I mean by that is some of the people that they're talking about here are high-ranking individuals. I mean, we're talking royalty. We're talking judges. We're talking political leaders, elite, the elite of the elite. I don't care what it would do to society's foundation if you just put every single one of them in jail tomorrow. I don't care about the financial institutions that would crumble. I don't care about any other sense of institutional framework that would crumble underneath that. I don't care what it would do in the name of royalty. I don't care what it would do. I don't care what it would do anywhere. We would rebuild in the way that we need to. Going on, it says that the government said that its case could become even stronger because additional witnesses have come forward since Maxwell's arrest, wanting to provide information against her. Now, importantly, they're saying that she has an ability to flee to France because of her, amount of money that she has and everything else. She has a $5 million bond right now. Now that everyone's caught up a little bit here with the frame of mind that she was in, with the new information we have with the video evidence, that she was fleeing from FBI, that she was wrapping her phone in tinfoil. This is the type of person, this is the way this person thinks. This is the way this person thinks, and now you have it all connected with the type of individuals that were interacting with these folks. Richard's sending me some good information here. I'll get to that in just a second, Richard. This is the update now that Kelly was posting about this morning. All right, so here's the story from Reuters. Investors sue Deutsche Bank and its CEO in wake of Epstein fine. This story seems fairly, don't know, innocuous on its face. It's like, okay, you expected some of this stuff to come out. It doesn't seem like it's going to be all that monumental of a story, but let's hear about it. Investors are suing Deutsche Bank and its CEO, alleging that the bank made false and misleading statements before it agreed to pay a $150 million fine for compliance failures linked to disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. Man, that is a serious fine, right? Lawsuit was filed last Wednesday in U.S. District Court in Newark, New Jersey. Keep that in mind. I'll tell you why here in a second. Newark, New Jersey, and seeks unspecified damages. It claims shareholders lost money because of Deutsche Bank's dealings with Epstein, who was implicated in dozens of sexual abuse cases. He died. I like the way they phrase this too, by the way. You're starting to see more and more of this now as opposed to he committed suicide. It's just, no, he died. Let's no one believes that he killed himself anymore. So even Reuters is apparently going to come out and say, well, he just died. All right.
Or at least there's not enough definitive proof to say he committed suicide. Yeah. So it's not worth specifying whether or not he was killed or he committed suicide. He died. We do know that. Maybe. Like, right. Maybe.
Yeah, right.
There's more evidence that he died than he was committed suicide or was killed, I guess.
Saying he died last August at the age of 66 after being found hanging in a Manhattan jail. New York regulators last week announced Deutsche Bank would pay the fine for, quote, significant compliance failures over Epstein in two unrelated cases. Deutsche Bank declined to comment on the lawsuit. Last week, it said that the settlement showed, quote, how important it is to continue investigating in our controls and enhancing our anti-financial crime capabilities. The lawsuit also names as defendant Deutsche Bank's finance chief, James von Moltke, and former CEO, John Cryan. The named plaintiff, yada, yada. I don't pretend to understand what any of this is about. I don't know what's going on. I don't know the legal intricacies behind this. I mean, like, it's a very short, there's a couple paragraphs here, man. All I know at this point is that there's some compliance failures because they failed to disclose what did you were working with Jeffrey Epstein? I don't know. It doesn't give me a lot of information, which only fuels the speculation about the following story here.
Well, I think it probably is if they were doing banking with Deutsche Bank and now he's being accused of committing crimes and receiving money based on crimes. They could be suing them because they exposed them to legal liability.
Yeah.
You know, and I assume they're probably getting on the front end saying, we were not involved in any kind of criminal conspiracy, and we're showing that by suing someone who could have exposed us to, or maybe people, not just Epstein and Maxwell, but multiple people who could have exposed the company to criminal liability, and saying you harmed us because of that. I'd say that's what they're probably doing.
Because they would have had to disclose some of that stuff, right?
Or they don't want to be held responsible on the back end for sure.
Yeah. Now here's where the story starts to get weird, okay? And again, keep in mind, location that I mentioned before, U.S. District Court in Newark, New Jersey. Federal judge's son shot and killed. Husband injured in an attack at New Jersey home. So real quick, before we go on here, let me just let y'all know where these dates are coming from. The Reuters story that we just read, that was published on July 16th, 2020. This ABC News story. This one I'm about to get into right now, talking about the federal judge's son that was just July 19th. So the Reuters story talking about the Deutsche Bank investigation, that was July 16th. This federal judge's son shot, that's the July 19th date there. So here's the story. The husband and son of a federal judge in Newark, New Jersey, her name is Esther Salas, have been shot. Middlesex County prosecutor told ABC News. This judge's son is dead, according to law enforcement sources. The condition of the husband was not immediately known. Judge Salas, whatever, we'll go forward. The first Latina to serve on the federal bench in New Jersey was not hurt. A suspect, quote, remains at large, a law enforcement official said. Investigators have preliminary information that someone dressed as a FedEx driver arrived at the family home in North Brunswick about 5 p.m. on Sunday, according to multiple law enforcement sources. The judge's son opened the door and was immediately shot. Just his husband was then shot multiple times. The investigation is being led by the FBI, which declined to comment. Now, New Jersey State Police, North Brunswick Police, and the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office are also involved in the investigation. U.S. Marshals have also been called in to provide the judge with the security detail, according to law enforcement officials. Now, here's arguably the most important part of the story. Judge Salas has received threats in the past, sources say, and authorities are investigating whether there was any connection between those prior threats and the shooting, and whether it possibly involved the husband's work as a criminal defense attorney. Now, I went through most of this fairly quickly, so let me pull up one final article, and then I'm going to hit Facebook comments and YouTube comments and the unified chat and all that, see where people are at with this. Because, again, there's a little bit, very slight, if I'm being honest, a little bit of a conspiratorial stretch, to try and figure out these pieces that connect. But I'm telling y'all, dude, like, I just can't see it any other way right now. It's just, that's where my mind is stuck. Next story here, Bloomberg. All you need to know about this next story is the stuff that's mentioned in the very, very top. Again, remember, we already talked about this story. The Deutsche Bank investors sue Epstein ties over stock drops. We're already there. Those blue little bullet points you're looking at on your screen right now, District Court of New Jersey, gives you the docket number right there. Check out that judge, though. Esther Salas. So the judge that was just handed this Deutsche Bank case, the one looking into the Epstein ties, the one that you have to pay $150 million fine for, her son was just murdered. And they were going after the husband as well. One can only assume, maybe you can even stretch it to a presumption, that she was actually also one of the targets also. Now, again, man, look, as to why something like this went down, I don't know. I think the timing clearly between her getting this case for the Deutsche Bank thing and her family being murdered, I think that is very clear. Now, what the purpose of it who was behind this, I do not know. I don't know. And the connection back to Maxwell, I have yet to make that connection either. But I'm telling y'all right now, dude, let me one more time go back to the appeal that was made by that original tweet that we started this whole thing off with. Just a question for every American. Can we, for the first time in a long time, agree that if Ghislaine Maxwell dies in custody or anything else that prevents justice from coming to light, we agree to reroute every single protest in the same direction? I'll make that appeal one more time to everybody listening right now. Can we all get on that same page right now? Because this stuff, dude, I'm telling you, I've talked about this before. I don't know how many people follow me when I say this, but I truly believe the stuff that Epstein and Maxwell were involved in is the pinnacle of evil. The perversion of innocence, in my mind, I don't think there is anything worse on this earth. I just don't. Taking away someone else's innocence, the perversion of innocence, I believe, is the absolute worst thing that you could possibly ever do to somebody else. And I think that's what the driving, motivating thing behind all this stuff is, man. I think some of this stuff is coming to light. I think some of this stuff is being exposed. I mean, frankly, man, I think this is a little bit more why you've been hearing more about the Q stuff more than you ever have before, because this is their whole bag. And I know, I get it. That's what jumps into the weird world for everybody they didn't want to follow along with. I understand all that, man. I get it.
But this is not something we've seen in a vacuum. Epstein didn't kill himself, right? Also, a lot of people may not remember this, but somebody who was almost, I don't know for sure, but almost most certainly tied to Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein, or at least were in the same sick, dark profession, was Jerry Sandusky at Penn State.
Yes, right.
The first prosecutor to investigate Jerry Sandusky in 1998 disappeared and wasn't declared dead for over 6 years until after Sandusky's case came out publicly, the whole public thing in 2011, where they lost Joe Paterno and everything turned upside down at Penn State. That's when they finally declared that prosecutor dead 6 years later. Then another one who was investigating child abuse cases in 2011, a woman, Laura Ditka, 55, she just unexplainedly, she just died unexpectedly. They don't even tell you how she died in this article I'm looking at right here. Pennsylvania News, mcall.com. I can't even pronounce that county, but the district attorney's office tweeted Tuesday that Ditka died unexpectedly. No cause of death was given. And this was the lead prosecutor in the child abuse case involving Penn State officials. So, and I believe a judge died in that Pennsylvania case as well. So that's two prosecutors, and I can't remember if there was a judge or not. But what I'm saying is, this just seems to happen when people investigate the people trafficking children. It just seems to happen. Or even young, it's not just children, unfortunately. It's also adults, as we saw with the woman, or people closer to adult age. It's not just young children. It's also teenagers, young women, probably young men. Anybody involved in the trafficking of human beings for dark purposes seems to trip and fall down an elevator shaft, so to speak.
Sharma just said in YouTube, by the way, maybe she refused to cooperate. I think talking about the judge or something. He also said Prince Andrew and things are getting crazy. Jessica said it was most definitely a hit. And she just said a second ago, Penn State was a disaster. My high school was across the street from, oh, no, wait. She says, my high school was across the street from Lehman Dallas campus. I remember that case. And she was right there when it was happening. Jessica was. Eric said it's called a honeypot operation, blackmail powerful people by tricking them into sleeping with underage girls, or just a picture that might indicate it. Hey, man, that's a good, he's hitting on some serious stuff there, Eric is, right? A lot of this stuff may not just be about, obviously it's about, I think some entities kind of honest, I think they feed off of that perversion of innocence. That's my sort of take. But Eric has a great point here as well. Like, even if you're not into doing that thing, there's a lot of power behind it. There's a lot of power behind documenting some of this stuff happening and then forcing people to do particular things or not do particular things or answer a certain way or vote a certain way or hear evidence or not hear. It doesn't matter. But Eric's basically saying, how much blackmail was going on behind this stuff too? No, he says no loyalty to royalty. If they're guilty, burn it down. Begs the question of what other dirty dealings they're involved in, right? And Sharma just said too, did you guys catch the Black Forest case in Germany? It's like the second or third time we've heard about that since it's been coming up.
That was where, just recently, Grant. I can give you, you can Google it if you want to while I'm talking about it, if you really want to go down the road. But it was a mixture of private individuals and government involved in, what's the organization that comes and interviews you if you're abusing your kids?
Oh, Child Protective Services.
So it was involved in Germany's Child Protective Services, taking children out of people's homes and placing them with people to be abused.
Dude. Hundreds
of them. That's my understanding. And it was an operation that lasted over 30 years. It was something that started in the 80s and they just stopped it. Now, that's my understanding of it. It was a month ago that I read about it, but it's something that happened this year where it was government institutionalized. It wasn't like this with, I guess the Maxwell thing is kind of like that, but it wasn't, this was actually involved in Child Protective Services in Germany. Placing children with people they knew were likely, anyway, you get what I'm saying. I don't want to keep saying it over and over again. It's so dark.
No, I hear you, man.
Maybe we can spend some time going over that another day. Because it's a lot. It's its own thing, like Epstein, where it's a big thing and involved many people over decades, people investigating it, people dying, people investigating it, people dying. And then somehow, maybe because of the coronavirus shakeup, you know what I'm saying? Coronavirus had a way of shaking certain things out of their places a little bit. And maybe that's a little bit of why it came out this year. I don't know. I have no idea why. Why would, if something was so successful and being hidden, why would it come out this year? I don't know. I don't know the details of why it came out, but that's the gist of the story. Government-sponsored harming of children,
Kelly just said in Facebook, #common enemy, but it is all involved, every single bit of it, she says. She went on to say she has enough money to disappear and never be heard from ever again. Why was she hiding, in quotes, in the U.S.? I don't even know. She said the FBI knew exactly where she was.
I bet it's because other countries were told, you better not take her. I bet that's what it was about. Because she was also found with multiple passports with different names.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that's something we hadn't brought up, but there's more going on with her than her just being a rich French woman. You don't just have multiple passports. Rich people don't have multiple passports with different names on them just because they're rich people. Certain kinds of people have multiple passports with different names on them. And then have citizenship in 3 different countries I think she has citizenship in?
Yeah, I think it was 3, yeah.
Yeah. Regular rich people don't have that. She's a different kind. I don't know what that is because I'm not one of them. But yeah.
Some of this stuff, man, I know this is going to be a weird way to transition into the next topic, but some of this stuff I think should play a heavier role, honestly, in the 2020 election. I mean, I don't know if we have like presidential candidates debating about what's going to be done about this type of problem or something, but shoot, man, why not, right? Like everything else is fair game. Now let's bring this up, seriously. Ask these folks about it. I mean, goodness gracious, man. Kanye West did anybody listen to that speech? I should have pulled that speech for the show notes this morning, but I just didn't feel like we'd either have time or enough interest to actually get into it, man. But Kanye West had his first presidential.
That was so intense. So intense.
It got intense, dude.
He's right? A real dude when he wants to be. I'll give him that. Yeah. When he really wants to be, he'll lay it all out there for you, man. That's what a good artist will do, though. A real good artist will take all their pain and torture and torment and like just lay it out in front of you.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, and right? It's a gift and a curse, I suppose.
He was talking last night about how, he has a proposal for every person that doesn't abort their child or something like that to give him $1 million. And he went on this whole tirade about how his father wanted him to be aborted and he wanted to abort his daughter, but now he loves his daughter. And I mean, dude, he was just I think you described it perfectly, Sean, taking his pain and torment and just putting it through a microphone, man, just letting people do with it as they will. I think
it was a brave thing what he did. It was brave to admit something that he thought was a failure, especially a failure as a father. I mean, he sat there bawling his eyes out saying, I almost killed my daughter. It was really intense. And then like tying that into obviously some deep-seated pain he had with his own father, knowing that his father tried to get his mom to abort him too. So like tying in that multi-generational pain. I mean, when have you ever seen someone run for president being like, here's my deepest, darkest fear and secret and childhood trauma?
Yeah, that's true, right?
Know me, that I may know you and call you better man. I mean, like, wow. And I know he's a crazy, like, wild guy, but brave. I've never done anything like that and probably never will even get the opportunity to do something like that. It's wild. I know we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but like I'm sorry that I jumped in there. We haven't even like told people much about it, but it was powerful.
Well, look, Kanye West had his first presidential stump speech, sort of campaign rally, whatever, in South Carolina last night. That's essentially the whole story, and it's you can go check out the clips for yourself. But I think the important part, and I do think it ties into the Maxwell story before, because just stuff is getting strange nowadays, man. There's no reference point for anything anymore. I mean, people are struggling to figure out what truth is, and then amidst all that, man, there are still certain things that are rising to the top that people are saying, no. Like, I'm confused, but at the same time, that's correct. That's incorrect. That's right. That's wrong. I think some of this stuff needs to come up in the 2020 election, man. I do. And let me just gloss over some of these headlines here, man, because there's the final story I want to hit today in the last, say, 15 minutes that we have remaining in the show here. Sean and I have to get off directly at 10 Central Time, 11 Eastern Time, y'all. Quick to hit these quick headlines here is just check out that Tennessee Star article. It's a great story, basically breaking down that, look, when Trump took office, he was talking about he wanted to have, roll back 2 regulations for every new regulation that was added. That ratio is now actually rolling back 7 regulations for every one that's been added. I personally find that to be a fantastic thing. It's $50 billion in regulatory cost cuts. $50 billion in regulatory costs have been saved, which if you calculate that out, it's about $250 billion, U.S. consumer and businesses over per year, $250 billion per year. It's projected boost to household incomes of $3,100 annually. It's a fantastic story, man. And I would hope that it's a fantastic story, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whatever. I mean, look at the nonsense. You're looking at your screen right now. Look at the papers that are standing beside him. I know that's not the actual regulations that are cut. I get that. It's meant to be more of an imagery or whatever. But I will tell you this right now. And when I was taking tax courses back in law school, I remember professor started the whole thing off by saying, like, look, there's not a single person in this country that actually understands the tax code of the United States. And if you find someone that says they do understand, they're lying to you. It's just too much. There's just too much tax code for any one person to actually understand all of it. Which if it's at that point, you might have a little bit of a problem. But
I do know that a couple days ago there was an executive order, or it may have been last week, where he dramatically reduced the environmental study regulations for new infrastructure projects. So, like if you wanted to build a new interstate or a new highway or whatever, they'd spend like 5 years making sure like the turtles and sparrows were going to be okay. And see like what all needed to be done with that. And like sometimes the project never even, so you'd spend like millions of dollars on studies and then you wouldn't get a road. So now like that's like gone, and they have made it so if they want to build a road, they're just going to build a road. And I think they're trying to pass infrastructure bills. This is all part of a thing to like, there are going to be lots of people who need to work when this is all over, and we need people off the streets. We need people with like money, not money they get from the federal government on a debit card, like money to go out there and work for. It makes you feel better. But like that's one of the, and there's probably a story like that for every other regulation that has been removed, where it speeds up the flow of capital by years, not even like a few days or months. Years, sometimes in cases with these environmental studies, decades, Grant, where capital just gets locked up. And when this is all over, we need it to flow. We really need it to flow.
Eric actually just, by the way, Rawhide Kid, what's up? How's it going, man? Rawhide Kid just said, Shine G Money. Somebody knows this from back in the day in YouTube. That's who we are, right? Anyways, what's up, Rawhide Kid? Eric just said in Facebook, big number, meaning the 50 billion, but it just got annihilated by the spending from coronavirus. That's very true. That is sobering, but it is very, very true. It says not to mention the cuts need to come from military and Department of Education for starters. I agree with that also, but I'll give a clap to the efforts made, and any cut is good. Yes, absolutely. It's 100% right.
Well, that's a really good point. That there has been, I mean, I think you talked about it, a couple shows ago, that day I was gone, like how much we've spent in this from January of this year to now versus other years, and how monumental it is and how ridiculous it is. Yeah. The only way we don't make that back by paying it back, actually. What we need to do is make the United States more valuable. That's what helps pay it back, because it's not being like taken from us and then spent. So it doesn't work that way necessarily. But the way we offset all these trillions of dollars is we need, as soon as this is all over and we can like say go, we need to be creating value like no other. And the way we do that's through the regulations, because that's how it all gets not necessarily paid off, but that's how we stave off disaster based on these loans or whatever it is to the printing. You get what I'm saying? I do recommend everybody go check out Joe Rogan with Peter Schiff. Had a great breakdown. Peter Schiff of Pacific Capital. Really broke down well, like how much we're spending now and how awful that is. But if we're going to do something about it to offset it and keep it from destroying our grandchildren, the thing is to produce value. And these kind of cutting regulations can do that. Or at least give us a shot, a fighting chance, right?
Hey, let me make this hard transition here, man. 9:48, got a couple minutes left in the show here. As we're talking, obviously, about, federal deficit and everything else going on, I think this tends to be such a slow trickle, right, Sean? That where we're going, what's another $1 trillion when we're sitting on, what's our national debt at right now? Is it 28, 30 something? I haven't checked.
It's right below 30 trillion, I think.
Is this right below 30 rates? As we're that's a slow trickle, it's a slow burn. Like it doesn't hit you immediately in the face. As far as to what's something that could be that's potentially problematic. Sean, if you would, though, jump down to the stories that, I didn't put a big space there. That's kind of sad. Whatever. There's a near the edge there, near the bottom of the show notes, right before you get to the evergreen section, that red highlighted portion that says Portland problems, arrests, and unmarked vehicles. All right, so look, everybody knows what I'm about to get into. And I kind of just want to put the information out here in the last 10 minutes that we have. I really don't know if I want to give much of my analysis yet, because I'm not going to – I pride myself on not lying to my audience. I pride myself on – and this is just me speaking. I don't want to speak for Shine or anybody else that's even involved in real news, because I know Richard behind the scenes or Roz behind the scenes or anybody else that's still working behind the scenes may have totally made their mind up on this. Shine may have made his mind up on this too. But I just I'm not sure where I'm at on this Portland story yet. And I'm sorry these links are all jumbled together here, Sean, but as you're looking in here, if you don't know what this Portland story is, I just want to put this information out here to try and get assessment from the real news audience, and then maybe we can actually dive deeper into it tomorrow and some of these other days coming up. Here's the headline, though, okay? And all you really need is headline and at least one video to get at least a sense of what we're talking about. Here's the headline. Forbes, Trump ordered federal agents are reportedly pulling protesters into unmarked vehicles, drawing outrage. Here's the quick top line from that story here in Forbes that you're looking. Federal officers directed to Portland, Oregon by President Trump to allegedly quell violent Black Lives Matter demonstrations. All right, dude. So I'm not going to give analysis. I'm just going to read what you're seeing because I already had a problem with whatever. We'll go forward. Black Lives Matter demonstrations have been grabbing protesters off the streets and detaining them in unmarked vehicles since at least July 14th, according to local reports. Here's some of the key facts they say. And Shine, if you're on this article, you can go ahead and jump to the next thing here. We're about to just that tweet here in a second. Thing videos posted on social media and first-person accounts show the officers driving up to protesters in downtown Portland, reportedly arresting them with no explanation of why, and then driving off in unmarked vehicles. Usually when we see, this is a quote coming from Jan Carson, he's the executive director of Oregon's ACLU chapter, saying usually when we see people in unmarked cars forcibly grab someone off the street, we call it kidnapping. Well, all right. Now here's Senator Jeff Merkley. And this is the video I want to play, Shine, here in a second. I mean, the audio is not super important, but we can play the audio if you want to. Jeff says, authoritarian governments, not democratic republics, send unmarked authorities after protesters. These Trump/Barr tactics designed to eliminate any accountability are absolutely unacceptable in America and must end. Yeah, you can go ahead and play that, actually, man. Just go ahead and play that in the background. It's only 40 seconds long. Let's get a sense of what they're talking about. I mean, go ahead.
Use your words. What are you doing? Use your words. What are you doing?
I haven't done anything wrong.
Use your words.
What's going on, sir?
What is going on?
We need to know.
Who are you?
Why are you taking?
NLG will get you out. What's your name? Tell us your name.
What's your name?
Okay, you're fine. We'll get you out.
Bro, what? All right.
We got you, friend.
We got you.
All right, and there's other videos that you can see pulled up from somewhere else here showing that they're pulling up on the side of the street, grabbing people and throwing them in some van or something like that. Okay, and again, still so far, I'm just trying to throw some of this stuff out there to see where you guys are at on this story. There's another story here from, goodness gracious, Washington Post. It is what it is, man. It's the Washington Post, all right? But here's the headline from the Washington Post. It was like being preyed upon, Portland protesters say, about federal vehicles that were unmarked, vans coming up and detaining them. Here's a local headline. This is, let's see, KOIN. Night 51. That's important to keep in context here. This has been 51 nights of these riots going on. Night 51 riot declared at police union, tear gas used as justice center. So they set this police union building on fire. And when they set this police union building on fire, they had to use tear gas to get this stuff out. Now, importantly, one of the responses to that tweet from Senator Merkley, that we just read a second ago. This is from Andy. Is it Ngo? How do you pronounce his last name? Does anybody know, Shine? He's the Andy. Andy's the guy.
I'm not sure.
Do what now?
Oh, Andy, no. It's just no.
Oh, no. Okay.
It's NGO or something like, but it's Andy No.
Andy No.
Son of first generation son of Korean immigrants.
He's a guy that's very, very well known for, reporting on Antifa and a bunch of these other stuff. He
testified before Congress 2 weeks ago.
Did he? I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, he testified before Congress as the expert witness on Antifa. The expert.
No, I'm hopefully my audio is coming through all right, man. On Facebook and everything else, it might be a little bit garbled, but the point's still getting across. Here's what Andy said about that tweet from Senator Merkley. Now, and again, Senator said, authoritarian governments, not democratic republics, send unmarked authorities after protesters. These Trump-Barr tactics designed to eliminate any accountability are absolutely unacceptable in America and must stop. Andy said, this is Antifa propaganda you are spreading, Senator. These officers in the video are wearing uniforms with clear police markings and their agency patches on the shoulder. This isn't new unmarked uniform under the Trump administration. Monochromatic does not mean unmarked. Now, real quick here, I just want to pose a few questions. And before I do that, Sean, if you're following along the show notes, before I do that real quick, Just important thing to throw out there. I also included an ACLU article that indicates that, look, man, some of this indefinite detention bills, that was signed under Obama. So everyone has a bit of responsibility going on. It's not like you can just essentially point this at any one administration. Regardless of what my feelings about this are today or will be tomorrow as I'm continuing to develop these, I want everybody to know ahead of time that, dude, like, we're all sharing the blame equally here. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. Maybe some libertarians can get away with not sharing the blame of this because they've always been against some of this stuff. But for the most part, in this duopoly we're stuck in, man, we all got some shared blame. Before I get to some of these questions that are highlighted in red, we got 5 minutes here. Let me just give you a quick update on this COVID story. And it seems unrelated, but like literally 20 seconds, I'll tie this all together. In Kentucky, there was a couple. The wife tested positive for COVID-19. Okay, so the health department sent her some questionnaire or something saying after testing positive, but without showing any symptoms, this individual was sent a letter from the health department. They contacted her and requested her to sign a document that will limit her traveling anywhere unless she calls the health department first. She said that she chose not to sign the documents. This again in Kentucky. This happened last week. So what ends up happening? Officers show up to her house. They said there was like 5 cars. There was a dozen individuals that showed up to their house. Their husband was there. They put anklet monitors on these people. They put anklet monitors on these people for testing positive for COVID-19 and basically said, like, hey, if you leave your house, we'll know when you leave your house. Can't travel more than 200 feet outside of your house without it alerting law enforcement. She just said, like, she didn't like the wording of this thing that she had to disclose or whatever. So here's the questions I want to leave people with today. And I'm not implying, I don't mean to imply any sarcasm here. I'm genuinely wondering your thoughts on all this stuff. First of all, how do you feel about the response for the Portland stuff going on? And I don't care if you claim it's to be Antifa or Black Lives Matter. It doesn't matter to me necessarily. How do you feel about the response to that? Conversely, couple that with how you would feel about the response if it was, say, Boogaloo Fools doing this or the QAnon folks that were doing this, as opposed to Antifa. If it was Boogaloo or QAnon or any one of these other folks, would you feel the same way that you do about it being Antifa? Conversely, okay? And this is to really hit some of my libertarian friends or some of my Republican-leaning friends that might be okay with some of this thing happening. I'm just devil advocate here, throwing out all these different situations. I'm looking for a sense of consistency. Again, no sarcasm. Compare and contrast your feelings with the previous story that I just read about the Kentucky couple that was forced to wear ankle monitors for testing positive for COVID. Compare and contrast your feelings with that story, with the story that's going on. Now, it's a bit of a false equivalency. I realize it's a slight bit of a false equivalency, but what I'm trying to get here is sincerely trying to approach an appropriately consistent answer to how all of us feel about authoritarian overreach, if it's justified or unjustified. And the remaining 2 to 3 minutes we got here, man, I don't know, Sean, if you want to hit some Facebook comments or if you want to make a comment on that or if anybody wants to dive into analysis or whatever.
I think the best comparison is when those right-leaning folks took over the forest station in the same state, Washington. Feds killed 3 people there. They lured them into a trap and killed 3 people. When right-leaning people, as a form of protest, whatever, in their words, not mine, took over a forest station, by the way, like an out in the middle of nowhere forest station. No public, no chance of harming anyone in the public. The federal courthouse has been under siege, and now the state government of Oregon is teaming up, in my opinion, with the protesters, saying they're allowed to burn down federal courthouses, and we do not want the feds here to protect their federal courthouse. In my opinion, it's semantically like Fort Sumter, where an armed group of people went out to Fort Sumter in South Carolina and said, get out, and the state government sanctioned those people doing it. In my opinion, Oregon is lucky the federal government hasn't declared war on Oregon, in my opinion. And it's mostly about the state government being in cahoots with the protesters. Saying we don't want the federal government here defending their property. When they were totally okay with the federal government being out in the woods, killing right-leaning people. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's a fair comparison. People died. The federal government took it seriously. People died. So what I'm saying is if all that's happening to these people is they're getting arrested so the feds can take pictures of them. I guarantee you that's all there is. By the way, and you showed that infinite detention thing. All the reports that we're seeing is people are being held for 90 minutes and being let go. They're getting fingerprinted. They're getting their picture taken. They're being asked questions, and they're immediately letting people go. And then they're going back to the protest, by the way. But I promise you, it's just about taking their pictures and getting their fingerprints because these people wear masks all the time. So they're building a database, and they'll probably bug these people for the rest of their lives. I'm not saying they won't, but these people are part of attacking a federal courthouse for 51 days. Other people who've done that in the United States have had armies sent after them. It happened in Utah pre-Civil War. The Mormons weren't recognizing federal court authority. And the U.S. Army sent 36,000 men to Utah to establish that they had federal court authority. This has happened in the West many times, is what I'm saying, especially out West. And Oregon's lucky that there's not been a more serious response, in my opinion, because the state government is involved now protecting these people trying to burn down the federal courthouse.
Hey, and unfortunately, man, we got to make a very, very hard stop here. We're at 10. We'll go ahead and sign off. Last thing I'll say on all this is I think Eric has at least the starting point I'd like for all of us to be at too. Is like we've been divided into teams. All right, it's exactly what I think is going on here. Hey, it is 10:01. We have to hit off of this morning. Guaranteed tomorrow we'll be taking more of this topic up though, because I think it's just like it's got tentacles. They go into absolutely everything, and I'll be reading over the comments tonight in the unified chat that you guys all just sent out there. Love each and every one of y'all sincerely, for real. But we'll see you tomorrow doing it big.